The funeral for Ethiopian singer Hachalu Hundessa was held in his native Ambo town as unrest over his death spread from the Oromia region, where he was seen as a hero. The crowds of mourners were not as big as anticipated. Many said they had been turned away by police, uneasy that the funeral procession could turn into another protest. The singer was shot dead in the capital Addis Ababa on Monday. The motive for his killing remains unclear. The musician and activist embodied the aspirations of Ethiopia's largest ethnic group, the Oromo. His songs focused on the rights of the Oromo people and became anthems in a series of protests that led to the downfall of the previous prime minister in 2018.
Without Hachalu Hundessa, we would not have had the kind of mobilization that we had between 2015 and 2018 in Oromia. Without the Oromo youth protesting, we would not have had the political change that have happened in 2018 and brought the current prime minister into power.
Dozens have been killed in protests in Oromia since Hachalu's killing 3 days ago. Along with others, he had recently become critical of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's rule. The musician had been imprisoned for 5 years when he was 17 for taking part in protests. Many like him fled into exile, fearing persecution, but he remained at home, encouraging young people to speak out about the plight of Ethiopia's largest ethnic group. The Oromo have long complained of being sidelined. Prime Minister Abiy himself, an Oromo, has released political prisoners, allowed greater freedom of speech, and lifted a ban on several opposition groups. But many Oromos say they continue to be marginalized.
So far, the government's handling of this situation has really exasperated the situation instead of giving people the space to mourn.
Abiy won last year's Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in brokering an end to a decades-long standoff with neighboring Eritrea. Domestic conflicts have proved harder for the Prime Minister to smooth over, though. Millions of Ethiopians have been forced out of their homes, and there are now concerns that hostilities in the Oromo region could lead to bloodshed. If current efforts by the Prime Minister to calm Oromo anger fail, then Ethiopia's first attempt at real democracy could be derailed before the next elections are held. Mohamed Adu, Al Jazeera, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, as we heard in Mohamed's report, the Oromo say they've suffered a long history of being oppressed and marginalized by the central government. Plans to expand the capital, Addis Ababa, using Oromo farmland in 2015 triggered 3 years of protests and violent repression. This eventually forced the ruling party to replace the Prime Minister with Abiy Ahmed, himself an Oromo. But many now say he's neglecting his own community, just like leaders of the past. Well, earlier we spoke to Bilaine Seyun, who's a spokesperson for the Ethiopian Prime Minister's Office of International Media, and she addresses now some of the calls for political reform that have come out of these protests.
The government, over the past 2.5 years, has been taking or undertaking critical reforms. Now, one of the things we have to bear in mind is that this administration has inherited a very broken system and a lot of grievances that had been accumulating over several years, and these grievances have not had a chance to express themselves within the past 28, 29 years. So this administration, having come into place over the past 2.5 years, has been really trying to unlock a lot of systemic bottlenecks. The situation right now, the government is in control. The functions of establishing law and order are in place as well, and there's deliberate intention and action for the government to be dispensing its responsibility of maintaining rule of law and stability.